Hey, thank you for joining today's episode 7, The Pulse of High Performance, Optimizing Processes, People, and Performance. So today's episode, I'm really going to focus on the clash between metrics, AI, and striking the balance between the two. I'm joined by my co-host, Will Brice.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining everybody. My name's Will. Today I'm joined as a co-host. Today's a little bit different. We don't have a guest today. It's just me and Mike. So introducing ourselves, like I said, my name's Will. I've been on the competitive solutions team for about 3 years here, working on the software help desk. A lot of other areas in our company. And like I said, I'm joined by Mike. So, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Yes. My name is Micheal Witkins of Competitive Solutions. Been with the company for about 18 years now. I'm the VP of Information and Product Technology. Been working with a vast of customers, also with our software team supporting our product that we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like Mike said, we're going to be talking about the clash between metrics and AI and really kind of exploring the growing tension between traditional metrics and the rise of AI driven decisions. Um, and those decision making tools that we're starting to see pop up, and everybody's getting into the realm of AI. So, I guess, Mike, what just to start off, what do you first think of when you hear the term AI?
Me being an IT guy all my career, first thing I think about is a change in the way we're going to operate, which is a little more efficient. But then on the flip side, a little skeptical, thinking about Skynet.
Yep. Yep. We got some Terminator thrown in there. I think a little bit of HAL and
Yeah.
Space Odyssey.
Mhm.
Sometimes we get a little bit wary of AI being introduced and kind of, how it can clash with our traditional metrics we
Right.
we track today. So
And that's a good point that you say there because we've noticed in today's society, a lot of people want the new technology. They want to adopt it. They want to start using it because we all use a form of it today, whether it is a form of AI, which we have a smartwatch, right, or a smartphone, or we all have. I'm going to trigger everybody's Alexa in their areas, and they use that. That is a form of AI that we all use, and some of us love it, some of us don't, but it really helps us with our day-to-day activities. So there are some good things to AI and how they can help improve our lives. But as you mentioned, using some of the traditional formats of whether it's tracking data or metrics, that can really change how we look at things and how we process things for ourselves.
right. So looking at the world that we're currently in with
Mhm.
traditional metrics, the importance of metrics, what we see, and this is kind of just a general for all organizations across the world, we need to have metrics to actually track performance, some sort of data to see where we're at currently, where we've been in the past, to somewhat try and give us a picture of where we're going in the future. So, kind of what have you seen with the importance of metrics and kind of seeing how
Mhm.
traditional metrics are important in today's world?
Well, in today's world, traditional metrics are just the baseline, right? The fundamentals of what we need to look at, maybe on a daily cadence or weekly cadence, that's going to really give us that snapshot of where we're at, right? So I think there's a lot of benefit to having that. And people need something to know whether they're winning or losing, right? So they can understand, hey, are we making our goals? Are we achieving what we said we're going to do, or are we not? Just like we have sport teams, right? We all know and love that analogy, but we have the teams. If we don't know the score, we don't know whether we're winning or losing,
Yep.
right? So having some type of metrics, I think, drives all of us in some way or fashion, but it just depends on what that focus or that drive is.
Right. And
So,
seeing, go ahead.
mhm. No, I was going to say, I want you now to answer that same question.
Yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
the purpose, the importance of seeing where you are currently is also actually informing your current decisions as well on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
There are areas where, if you're tracking your performance and you're performing
Mhm.
well, you might not have to take the same sort of action that you would have to take if your data was not performing well. So having that present snapshot gives you opens up the possibilities of what you actually can and can't do.
Right.
So that's the importance of actually knowing where you stand currently as well.
Okay. So with that being said, right, I know you work a lot with our customers, right, one-on-one, different companies for several years now. Can you just give me some case examples or things that you've seen with our customers without going into too much information
Right.
uh, that, has shaped their strategy?
Yeah, I think a big thing has been some sort of standardization or governance across teams. So a big problem point that people face today is either an overload of data or a lot of discrepancies between data points. So some of our customers we've seen where they have multiple different teams, they're all tracking the same type of thing just in their area. A lot of them were tracking it in different ways and having different goals. So there was no standard governance across the board. So they couldn't really talk about it in a meaningful way because they weren't on the same page. So having some sort of standardization of metrics where everybody is on the same page of what we are tracking, how we're reaching those goals. If we do or don't reach those goals, what are those actions we need to take? Right. So that's a big one I see is standardization and getting everybody on the same page.
Now, I do like that standardization because I feel that's very key, right? Same experiences with different customers, where I see where same company, same building, different metrics. Understand different business units, but the language is totally different. Why is Will using a metric title X and then Michael's using a metric title X? Same goal, but why are the titles different? Right? Isn't it the same goal? Should we standardize how we're going to have the metrics across the organization? So as long as we can get that common business language first, I think that is foundational to going to the next steps and improving how we're going to track our information.
Right. Right. So that's really kind of a quick kind of exploration / touch at where we are currently with traditional metrics, how people use traditional metrics to the best practices and to the best extent that they can use traditional metrics. So talk a little bit about how AI is being introduced in this world and how it might be starting to shape the future of tracking metrics and decision making in general.
Right. So now I noticed that a lot of times, right, there's things that's going on in organizations that people have challenges or trying to get solved. So for example, people use different LLMs, right? So learning language models out there to get the information from one system to the next system using AI to kind of be the vehicle to get that information. So how do you shape that information to do future decision making, right? And there's a lot of things that our customers want to look at and want to see.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Pause real quick. We might have dropped the connection. So I want to repeat the question and just kind of start just from the beginning real quick. The kind of looking future, the AI, how is that going to start shaping how we track metrics and the decisions we make on those metrics?
Yes. AI and machine learning really is going to impact our decision making greatly, right? I see customers that's trying to adopt it today, even myself trying to adopt it for the organization. And there's a lot of good things that AI can help produce as far as get data quicker, right? Analyze information faster. But then also too, there's always the watch out where if we're moving too fast, we don't have that baseline or that fundamental steps that I'm looking for to really understand everything that's going on, right? So I noticed there's a lot of different things that people want to focus on, and they have significant impacts on industries like healthcare, finance, retail, supply chains, right? So with these different models that's out there, LLM, which is a learning language model that people use to help convey the AI with their platforms that they have internally or their internal systems. So for example, in a healthcare, it can really transform the way they look at patient data and information or looking at charts and graphs. It's a lot for those doctors to take in to have to really get out to the customer or the patient where they might need something to help speed up that process, right? Nurses are busy doing things. So how can we help with that? And I think that's where AI can help us. Manufacturing as well. I think that's a huge gain for manufacturing organizations because they can improve the accuracy and efficiencies of production scheduling, right? All my customers I hear, oh, production scheduling. My scheduling is different than what we have, or the program has changed, right? And different things where we can't achieve the goal that we're having because the schedule's incorrect. What if we had a tool to help support that? But as I mentioned, AI is great, but we still need to kind of have the baseline of what we're measuring and what we're looking at, right? And also, too, looking at data management with machine learning and AI, where it can learn some of the trends that we're doing. It can help us understand how we catalog information, right? And also certify that critical data or metadata can be looked at in a timely fashion, right? So I know this kind of long-winded, but I know there's a lot of benefits to AI, right? And it's changing the way we make decisions in our everyday as well as in our business, meetings as well.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting going on that point you mentioned about the language learning models and kind of tying that into the standardization of, people might talk about things in slightly different ways, but having a model that can kind of bring everything together, no matter how you might discuss it here or here, and give everybody kind of the same picture, that could be a huge benefit of AI. So that's
Right.
very interesting. So what are some of the potential and biggest risk of conflict between AI and traditional metrics? I know you mentioned, things like we have to have a baseline. We can't let AI just, start running wild or going too fast because we start to lose touch of what we're actually doing. But what are some of those potential conflicts and on that?
Now, the potential conflicts, I can go on and on about that. Before we get into the conflicts, though, I do want to touch on a little more about the previous question, right? You said some things, and it's making me want to go back to talk about, data-driven decisions, how AI and machine learning can help us analyze that data faster, right? Then
Yeah.
also, too, having predictive analytics, which a lot of our customers are using to kind of forecast, right? What is the different trends or behaviors that we're seeing out there in the workforce? But for me, what I think is a game changer is equipment failures, right? We all have some type of machine that's running something, producing something somewhere. So what if we had AI to help us to kind of predict where we might have a failure at? So say I have, for example, right? I have Will, the super mechanic of the world. He's number one on my team. You have the execution to go look at this machine, monitor whatever, and you have years of experience. You're going to look and say, I think everything's good. Now, say in addition to that, we have this AI that's going to look at it and say, oh, we noticed that pump 4 or hydraulic 7 is starting to not go as fast. Visually, you can't see it unless you're watching it. Between the hours of X is giving us more data points there. And that is really helping us understand how we can make better decisions. But also, too, that's where it can conflict, which I'll get into. Then also, too, kind of some prescriptive analytics where we have specific outcomes that we want, and then AI can help us give us those actions around that. Right. So
Yep.
once again, I think that is something that's a game changer as well, where based off of what's going on, it prescribes me to do X in order to complete this task. And I think that's a game changer there.
Yeah,
Right.
so we've got both ends of,
Mhm.
looking at where we currently are and using AI to see, um, you know, how we can improve
Mhm.
that. And then also the other end of setting a goal in the future of we want to get to this and helping AI
Mhm.
propel us to that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's very interesting. So did you have anything else on that end or?
No. I think that kind of facilitates the point I was going after. So yes, I think that it covers everything there.
Cool. So we kind of touched on a little bit of the conflicts. I think that one of the biggest ones you've said and we've touched on is removing the human element from it, and there's been many I think there was a movie back in the day. Back in the day, it's now 10 years ago, I think.
Right.
The Eastwood movie, Trouble with the Curve, where all these it was the opposite of Moneyball, where Moneyball was the computer can tell you how to play baseball, and in this movie was the computer can't tell you anything. The scout with 25 years of experience has the eye and knows the intuition and all that. Obviously, those are both extreme. You go one extreme or the other. So going extreme into the AI route, we start using AI to help us predict what we can do in the future and where we are now. And we start using that every day. And all of a sudden, we're not sure whether the AI is even close to being accurate or not, because we haven't been really paying attention to it ourselves. So that's one of the biggest conflicts I see coming up. And we'll talk about some of the ways to try and balance those. But, like we've said, having that baseline is good. But what is one of the biggest conflicts you see with AI and metrics?
Right. So, kind of touching back on the point you just made there about human judgment, right? So that's where I think the conflict between AI and humans can happen there, where you got your human judgment, as you mentioned, right? I got a 25-year-old veteran, he or she, they know what they're looking at. They've seen it multiple times, every shape, form, and fashion, versus machine learning that's watched the same movements 25,000 times and say, based off what I analyze, that person is the right person versus what you selected as a human, right? Yep. But once again, AI is not looking at character, right? It's not evaluating what's going on in the climate of the workforce, which a lot of people don't look at. A lot of people are so grinded out. I love data. Give me the data. Now tell me what we can do with this data. Not looking at the human aspect of it, which is very key, which I think that's where AI is going to miss out and can't replace that. Now, eventually it will grow over time in the depth, eventually Skynet, as I mentioned, kind of moving it back. But without that happening, we need to make sure we still have the human aspect in there, right? But this is going to create tension between people, AI, machines, and the adoption rate of it, because some people think, well, since AI is going to happen, we're going to lose our job now, right? Or AI is going to replace it. So, for example, how many of your viewers out there have been to a grocery store, right? That is an auto checkout. That's a form of AI, right? The camera is looking to, for security purposes, but also too, making sure that when you move item from left to right, it is watching the movements there to scan everything, right? There's some things that can be missed, and that's why there's a human there. Hey, I raise my hand, my little light goes off, they come help. So I think you have to have a balance between the two, right? And I know some people's like, well, grocery store, how can you compare that to big data, right? I get it, but it's still an example of that we've all used in some shape that can get us out the store faster versus standing in line, right? But I can see that there can be some tension because different models are way more complex than others. And that's what a clash kind of comes back to your original statement, right? The models are very, very difficult to interpret. So once again, say I'm the AI aficionado and I'm working on it. I got this, I bring this big report to you and it's so much information. Can you discern everything that I'm trying to explain? Even if you understand it, it might be too much information that AI is spitting out at us. So this is where traditional metrics can help us paint the picture better, right? So for example, as I mentioned, all this data, which is great, AI spitting out, but say your traditional metrics, what are your 10 metrics, right? That's going to really enlighten the rest of our team to really understand what we're using. So having a platform like Visual that can clearly show all our top 10 metrics there to understand what we're focused on, I think is a game changer versus AI as a tool is going to help us, but we kind of need the human aspect, which those 10 things that we can have actions around or conversations around for our team.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I like that point, and I like the example of the checkout lines as well, because that's another point that people always bring up about
Mhm.
AI is, how do I know,
Mhm.
what the AI is doing is correct, and
Correct.
that comes back to, it's only going to be as good as what you put into it and how you're setting it up. So if you're throwing it 1,000 pieces of data and saying, give me a report on this, it's going to give you back that 1,000 pieces back saying here, 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 and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. So
Right.
if you have those strategies of, here's what we're going to feed the AI, here's what it's going to give us back. And I brought up I'm going to steal your metaphor, the checkout, because if I'm on a big grocery run, I've got 100+ items. I'm
Yeah.
not going through self checkout,
Yeah.
because I want somebody to help me bag it and help me go through and scan all these items. I'm not going to sit there and punch in every code for a banana and hold up the people who only have 3 items behind me. So
Correct.
um, there's different scenarios that are
Mhm.
useful in different when they arise. So yeah, the AI will only give you as good as you'll actually feed it.
Right.
So,
And I want to go back to the grocery store, right? That makes me think a little more about that conversation because it's meant to be fast and efficient to get you out the door, right?
mm-hmm.
That's what that line is meant for. But that's the same thing in the business world. There's going to people that's going to adopt fast, scan what they need, move forward. They're going to adopt it. Then there's going to be other businesses or organizations where they want to go to that self or not go to that self checkout. They want to go to that person slowly, right? Or, oh, okay, I'll scan this or I'll do this. Slowly adopt AI. So AI is here, right? It's all in front of us. We use it, but I think it's going to really take the organization and the right mindsets to really get over that hump of humans and AI interfacing together to get that true integration that we're looking for, right?
Yep.
And I think that goes back to your second part of your question of how to avoid some of that reliance on AI, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned earlier, so I'm kind of tying it back there. So I just want to talk about a few strategies that I see to help align that, right? To complement some of the strategic decision, right? Me being a very strategic person, I really like to look at everything to make the best decision, which is AI doing the same thing, but it's doing it much faster. So this is where you can really take both pieces and put it together. So my strategy number one is you need to align with your strategic goals. So if I have top level organization telling me, hey, what is our strategic goals for this year? Right. And I have it laid out there based off that, how can I ensure that we have traditional metrics that's going to measure how we're winning or losing. Then also how I can have objectives, right? That's looking at other things out there to align to that strategic goal. So that's my first thing, aligning your strategy to your strategy goals with the organization.
Yep.
And then I also would say my number two is adopt a hybrid decision making model, right? Or framework, right? Where basically you have a combination. I want to see traditional metrics where, once again, if I'm a C-level executive, right, or a manager or a leader, or even on the shop floor, right, as a leader there, I want to see the things that's going to make sense. And it could be 3 metrics here, it could be 15 here, it could be 20 here. AI giving me 3,000 data sets and then it can maybe skinny it down even further. Can I interpret that enough to be actionable for my team? I'm not sure because there's so much information, like your point earlier about too much data. But I do say AI can help complement, but also challenge some of our traditional metrics because some people say, why are we measuring this still? Why is this still in our system? Does this make sense to have this metric? And this is where you need to reevaluate. This is something that we make sure in our process to reinforce that if you don't reevaluate your metrics, they will fail because it's the same thing over and over, right?
Right.
So those are kind of my 2 points or strategies to kind of alleviate that over reliance of AI, right? Because people are going to get so used to it, just like we get so used to our smartphones. We can't remember a phone number anymore because we're so used to our phones there. But we all know our home phone number growing up. Most of our viewers, you guys know, your home phone. But when it comes to our actual random numbers or these random phone calls, we can't remember everything, but AI can kind of help us and complement that. We don't want to always rely on that, because if it goes down, we can't do anything because we don't have anything as a baseline for those traditional metrics.
Right. And yeah, and I really like your point about establishing those clear expectations as well. You know, because that is the human element of keeping AI in check. Of, you know, if everybody knows, you know, we're tracking a budget metric and our goal is to be less than $1,000 every month, and everybody is aware that that is the goal. When the AI spits out, you know, $5,000 this month, everybody's aware that, hey, that is not our goal. We went over our goal. The AI is telling the truth or whatever. If nobody knows the goal in this metric, and the AI is spitting back, you know, $10,000 this month and $9,000 this month, and everybody's like, well, the AI is doing its thing, so I don't know what it means. Let's just continue. And meanwhile, you're just burning budget money.
Right. And to build on what you're saying, like that's a good point, where if AI is spitting out our new budget, and say me as a leader, where I know specifically your budget's going to be $1,000 a month versus AI telling us 5,000, there could be a reason I have that. It could be where I know that in Q4 we're going to shoot up due to vacations and holidays, that we might have way more issues or more to spend that month, whatever. So strategically, I might say, I'm just going to divvy out this much per month. AI is looking at a bigger picture, which is not wrong, but this is where we need to use them in tandem, where we can't let them make the judgment. Because like you said, if you think you have 5,000 in your budget and you went and spent that, so I plan as a leader to maybe do that end of the year, you've overspent already. Now you can't do what we were planning to do as a result of that. So that's where you need that human piece, as well as that traditional baseline piece, to understand how we're going to look at things for our teams.
Yeah. So what are some, I know we talked about this kind of strategies, but I guess specifically looking at a leadership position, what are some kind of goals they can have or strategies to kind of guide their teams through this transformation?
Right. So when we're going through topping any transformation, right, people get scared. They hear the word transformation, they think they're going to turn into this person or thing or team that they don't want to be, right? Think about a butterfly, right? We got a caterpillar, right? It's moving around slowly, right? But before we can transform and fly away to something beautiful, we got to have a baseline. And that's where I always keep going back is, well, we need to have our key metrics. So we have our key metrics that are going to keep us focused there as we go through this journey of digital transformation. So that goes back to where my first strategy, or my first thing I always want to say with AI or rolling out or data integration, is aligning the technology investments with the business outcomes. So once again, I'm looking at my fiscal year. If our goal is to adopt AI, say that's our example, by 2025, right? So based off that, based off resources, budget, time, all that stuff, right? The key things, how can we align our investments as well as our people to enhance the performance and growth, right? And then we have to have the technology clearly communicated, which is my next point, right? So if we know we're going to buy, let's keep it simple, a new printer, the printer's been causing issues, let's announce that at the right time, that it's known that it's going to happen. How many times have we seen when we get a new technology rollout and it just happens?
Yep.
Right? I've never done that.
That's cool. We see that a lot. I mean, I've seen it a lot where I'll log into something and it'll be a kind of new version, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, I wasn't made aware of this or anything, but yeah, the clear communication as well is, and also because going back to everybody's worries about AI, it helps ease your team members as well, and clearly communicating what this is going to do and what the expectations of it, of the AI, and of how we are going to fit with this AI, making that as clear as possible helps kind of ease those worries.
That's correct, right? Having that clear vision aligned to the business, of course, right? And then with your objectives. But the key is, which I see organizations fail so much, is they don't communicate it regularly, right? Beginning of the year, Happy New Year. All right, here's what we're trying to do. And then it happens, August. What? I didn't know. So with the journey, I want to see people make sure to communicate every single month, even if it's multiple times or it's touch points. Hey, Will, we're going to do this data integration on this date, letting your team know it's going to happen.
Yep.
Sure it is. IT says it's going to happen, right? Communicate again, reinforce it. So when the time comes, it's an easier adoption, and it's not so people are so tense of being scared of something's going to happen because they didn't know it was going to happen. So communication is the key part. So I like to align, kind of going back there, align the technology with the investments for the business for that year or that month or that plan period, and then develop clear communication plans, right? And then make sure those plans maybe are actionable so people will take actions. So by having that and tying it all together, having it in a system like Visual, I can quickly see, hey, when is this going to be communicated? Who has what action? What is the plan? What is the metric? Right? Even though AI is telling us all this other stuff, what is the metric that's going to give us that kind of this beacon of light of where we're going, right, for our team?
Yeah, and I like the point about making it actionable too, because that, you know, bringing your team members into the fold and actually help, you know, having them help work on this transformation and contribute both makes it an easier transformation and helps them feel more confident in the transformation as well.
Exactly.
And having it all in one place like Visual is as well a confidence booster.
Absolutely. So with that being said, you know, kind of talking about, you know, the strategy there, you know, I'm going to kind of transition where still in the leadership mindset with the leadership hat on. So executive coaching and aligning AI initiatives with human values, right, for specific leadership goals. How is that done, right? And these are two things that you know, I'll go in twos or threes. That's kind of my thing, right? Where one of my things will be number one for me is empower the team and upscale the team. Right, I'm put those together, even though I can separate, but I'll put them together, which is providing training, right, and development opportunities for the teams to adopt these new skills, because AI is going to be so much faster than we traditionally used to use. How can I prepare the team to be able to be agile enough during that process to make those changes, right? And that goes back to my caterpillar analogy earlier, right? We're all caterpillars, right? Trying to make it to the next word, cross the street without getting ran over, right? Before we can actually fly over that street, we need to make sure we have the right skills to do that. Yep. Then goes back to my second piece, which is ensuring accountability and ownership, right? So if I upskill my people and they're trained and they're good, they know what to do, right? And they also are then accountable and they have their own ownership in it, where we're going to sign it. So basically, say I have different digital initiatives going on, whether it's machine learning subsets or as well as AI or whatever it may be. How can I have them be part of that? So specific initiatives assigned to them to get that completed, right? And we want to track that progress by having those traditional metrics, right? Versus, you know, all this information, right? We need to have something where we can have a baseline for us to meet on, have conversations around. And then this is going to really help us address any challenges along the way in the digital transformation journey by having those laid out for us that we can quickly understand. So when it's time to transition, it's very easy for us to do so.
Yep. That makes sense. Yeah. I think, you know, again, having your users and your team members have that accountability gets them invested in caring about whether this works or not. And also having them understand, you know, what the AI will actually do for them as well. So yeah, tying in both ends of here's what the AI needs from us, and here's what the AI will give to us. If painting that picture as clear as possible will, you know, hopefully make people feel like they want to invest that effort into making it work, because it's going to make their job easier at the end of the day, hopefully.
And that's correct, right? You got to have the right people and right things in place, because a lot of times people want to just start rolling with it. AI is the biggest buzzword right now, and we've all used it in some shape or form, like using different platforms where we see what it can give us as far as information, which is great. Then what do you do with the next step with that information? Because it's so much. And then, like you mentioned earlier, is a key point: bad data in, bad data out.
Yep.
As you know, if we're feeding 10 years of machine history into this AI tool, it's going to give us 10 years of machine history. Say I don't care about the 10. You got to be very specific. Give me the last 18 months of data to specifically to look at, then I can better gain 10 years, which is it might tell me replace it right now because it's looking at the 10-year of it versus the last 18 months. Who knows? We might have been running as heavy for the past 3 years, whatever production reason.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well about the AI will give you exactly what you asked for. So if you ask for something very generic, it's going to give you something kind of generic. If you ask for something as specific as possible, it's going to give you something as specific as possible. So that's a great point. I think we're heading towards our kind of wrap up period. So as we wrap this up, we've talked about a lot. I've had some worries about AI in the past. I've seen how we can merge what we're doing today and what we're going to be doing in the future. Because as everybody, you've heard the phrase, AI is inevitable. So I guess what are your key takeaways on the conflict between where we're at now with traditional metrics and what AI will be presenting in the future and offering?
Right. So I think traditional metrics are good if you actually pay attention and tweak them accordingly, right? You need to make sure you want to tweak that information accordingly, that you're tracking the right things. I see too many people track the wrong things, but also too, AI might give us too much to track. So just like I mentioned earlier, it's like having a tool, right? AI is a tool in my belt. A software platform, right, can be in my other one, right? Office product can be in my other. We use different products together to get the outcomes. But I want something that's going to be more strategic to kind of show us a high level what we need to focus on. Because once again, AI can give us so much information, which is great. But if we have too much data, we can't do anything with it. Analysis paralysis, right? Too much information, we can't do anything with it. And then also, too, on the point there is complexity versus simplicity, right? AI is going to be way more complex with the different models. It's different, hard to interpret, hard for people to actually understand some of it. You might have key team members that know it, but we just don't know how to really convey it to maybe the next level of the organization or senior leadership, right? Where they want to know, hey, are we where we're at? Are we going to win or are we going to lose? How can we help improve or support you in the business? So I think there's a lot of challenges around there with both platforms, right? You just got to make sure you have a solid fundamental baseline in order to make it to where you and your team want to go.
Yep. Well, those are all great points. I appreciate you joining me and bringing your expertise to the table. I think we are wrapping up. So thank you guys so much for joining episode 7 of our podcast here. Just to give you guys some info on where to contact us, you can reach us at info@csipbl.com. You can reach out to Visuant support@visuant.com. You can reach out to us personally, Mike.
And so if you want to contact me directly, it is Micheal, so Michealw @csipbl.com. And I can answer any questions, right? Happy to jump on the call, kind of explain things further, have a little more conversation about what we talked about today. What about yourself, Will? What's your contact information?
My email will be willb, WILLB as in boy, @csipbl.com. So same domain as Mike, first name, last initial, will be. I will be happy to help with anything, answer questions, give you guys information, chat, talk, however we can help. But we really appreciate you guys joining us today and watching. Feel free to join us next week and check out our previous podcasts. And we look forward to hearing from you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you, Will, for having me on the show and having yourself on the show as well. It was a pleasure talking about this. We can talk all day. You know, I'm passionate about this. So we can definitely talk more and more about it. But thank you for everyone signed in today, checking out this podcast. And once again, we'll love to talk to you more about more information. You have our contact